lots of things to talk about this morning, but I suppose I should get your reaction to the temporary halting of the AstraZeneca administration. What's your feeling about it?
I'm disappointed, Pat. Disappointed. They are not trusting the science, right? 17 million people have had this vaccine. No evidence of any kind is causing blood clots. And even worse, Pat, we know the virus itself causes blood clots. There's a high risk of that. They're putting 30,000 people at risk now who aren't getting vaccinated this week. So I think it's very disturbing, to be honest.
So, as far as you're concerned, the science vindicates the continued use of AstraZeneca.
Absolutely. And the MHRA, of course, they're on the ropes now. Phil Bryan, who's head of the MHRA in the UK, they made a statement last night. We're aware of what's happening in Ireland. He said we're reviewing things all the time. He said people should still go ahead and get the vaccine. That's the UK saying that. The EMA, remember, have also said, and that was 3 days ago, keep using it because the benefits far outweigh any risks. So it's just a strange one. I guess it typifies what's going on, Pat, this hugely cautious approach, doesn't it? But remember, 30,000 people won't get the vaccine this week. These are high-risk, vulnerable people. So they better make their mind up quickly on this one, I think.
All right, well, let's move on to our intended agenda today. And one is, if you do happen to be unlucky enough to catch COVID and it turns out to be the South African variant, and there's kind of good news behind it.
There is. Yeah, this is on Friday. There was a very nice report, Pat, where they took antibodies from someone who had the South African variant. And guess what? They worked against the Brazilian variant. So this just shows you can get cross protection, I guess, between different variants is the first thing I'd say there. But secondly, that South African one then it gives a fantastic immune response that could work in many different contexts. And of course, they're examining people now who've had the different variants and testing them in various ways. So again, that gives us a little bit of hope that the variants aren't quite as troublesome as we were worried about. And again, it's a work in progress, but I thought it was a good study.
Okay, so the idea is that if you do happen to be afflicted with the South African variant, you develop such a robust antibody response that if another variant comes along, you'll probably beat it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, precisely. Yeah. And it's kind of the same with any variant, really. They do show some protection against different variants. But that South African one looked especially strong in terms of driving a very strong antibody response. And again, it gives us a bit more hope, I guess, that these new variants won't be as worrying as we had thought. But again, it's a work in progress. At a minimum, Pat, they're saying that if a vaccine against a previous variant is now challenged with a new variant, it'll definitely protect against severe disease and hospitalization, you see. Yeah. So again, that's not a bad sign. And that South African study kind of confirms that.
Yeah, and everything to do with lockdowns has been due to a concern that our health system would literally be overwhelmed. So if people are not going to end up in hospital, not going to end up in ICU, it sort of leads the way to a potential opening.
It does. And the conversation's shifting towards it all the time, Pat. There's no doubt about this now, that the key thing to do is to stop people ending up in hospital and then progressing, obviously, into severe disease. And remember, every vaccine that's out there now has been shown to prevent that. The ones that have done the big trials, they've been shown to prevent this hospitalization and severe disease event. So that's right. The main thing vaccines do, Pat, remember, is they break that chain from case numbers to hospitalization to severity and then finally death. It blocks that chain, you see. And what this means is case numbers become less important. It's like getting another disease that isn't as lethal, and then that's fine. So this is all these studies are sort of suggesting the same thing.
Now, some of the texts coming in from our News Talk listeners, I'll happily take the AstraZeneca vaccine right now. Is there any way that people who are willing to take the vaccine would be able to get it? No need to wait. Gordon in Dublin. Interesting that, okay, if you guys are fearful, don't waste it. Don't leave it lying on the shelf. I'll put my arm out and I'll have it. Thank you very much.
You see, we're criticising the US for keeping vaccines on the shelf, aren't we? Remember this came up last week that the US, and then we also know there's a Belgian factory that apparently, I heard yesterday, has 30 million doses on the shelf. We're now keeping that vaccine on the shelf ourselves, which seems especially ironic, doesn't it?
All right, let's move on to another piece of good news, the Novavax and its performance.
Yeah, this is good as well. So they reported their big data. They'd hinted at this actually a few weeks ago. in a press release that the vaccine was looking good, and this is now vaccine number, I think it's 10, actually, if you look at them all, where we got loads of data. So the data came out, 96.4% efficacy. And again, Pat, very nicely, it worked against the South African variant. So again, it works, the old variant and the new one, it was efficacious against that one as well. And again, 100% protection against severe disease and death in either the South African or the old-fashioned variant, if you like. 15,000 people on the trial. 27% over 65, so that was good. They got 83% protection after the first shot, and it got as high as 96% after the second. Keeps in the fridge, another one like that. So this is another great vaccine that we can deploy. And now the EU, the EMA are examining Novavax very closely, and it's different, Pat, to the other ones. It's the spike protein itself, so that they're injecting the actual protein into your muscle now. Whereas with Pfizer, it's RNA, as you know. With AstraZeneca, it's DNA. This is the protein itself. So it's another option, basically, another type of vaccine showing remarkable efficacy at 96%.